So today I would like to speak about my black and white photography process, particularly how I take black and white photos in this kind of botanical garden. Instead of planning ahead what kind of photos I'll take, I just try to make it a habit to come here quite often, to look, as we go through the seasons, what has changed, what are the weather conditions like today, and just adapt to it. I find that that's really good to help me to be really present in the moment and not worry too much about the outcome. And sometimes it happens that I will end my lunch break and won't have found anything. The only thing is that I will feel really cold and happy to go back to my office afterwards. But inspiration doesn't always strike, but I think that the important thing is to be present and to try to make it happen. So to start with, let's just walk around a little bit and I'll show you around. So this is a very beautiful botanical garden. So there's the tree here behind me, which is pretty much dead. Even in the summer I didn't see any leaves on it, but I find that it's got really interesting shapes, and I'm going to see if maybe there's a photo here. So before I start taking pictures, let's talk a little bit about the kind of gear I'm using for that. I've got a Fujifilm X-H1 that I have attached to a Peak Design clip here on my shoulder strap. I find this really practical because I can just take the camera, unclip it like this and quickly take a picture. Just as quickly put the lens cap back on and just put the camera back and good to go. So that's quite practical for my style of photography. I don't mind using a tripod so much, but if possible I prefer to be able to walk around quite freely, move around, look at different kind of compositions pretty quickly. Because I find that if I use a tripod, I'll have this temptation to stop too quickly and to lock in my composition, whereas when I'm handheld I can really move around a lot more freely. Quite a big grip, which is great. And I've got this lens on, which is 16 to 80 millimeter f4 lens. But I don't just use a zoom lens. I also own a Carl Zeiss Biota lens. It's an 80-year-old lens, which is a 58 millimeter f2 lens. It's got manual focus and it's got shallow depth of field compared to my zoom lens. What I do when I take these photos is that I have like the black and white preview enabled on my camera. I've got a Fujifilm film simulation activated. It's the Acros film simulation, so I can preview everything in black and white. And the great thing about that is that I can see straight away what a scene will look like in black and white, because I sometimes find it difficult to visualize it in my head, with all the colors around. And here in the case of this tree, when I look through the viewfinder, I can see straight away that it will look great against the sky. I can see some real contrast between the background and the branches. So once I've identified a potential photo, a potential subject, and what I've noticed works well for me is if I don't just stay in one spot and take pictures, but walk around and take several pictures. I don't usually just take one picture, but really take 5, 10, 20, sometimes even 25 pictures or more in order to have a choice afterwards once I'm back at the computer, and to not be disappointed that I should have been just a little bit more to the right or to the left. I'm too close to the tree. I think I'm going to go a little bit to the other side over there. Yeah, looks nice. So now let's talk a little bit about the technical details, the settings I use in my camera when I take my photos. Can you see that these two dials here for ISO and ISO and shutter speed, yes. So I mostly just leave these on A on automatic. I don't use too complicated settings really, a lot of automatic settings, because for me what's more important is the composition and the image really. I don't dwell too much on the technical aspects, and I quite like to lose myself with the subject moving around and not needing to look at the camera so much anymore. Also, the other thing is that my subjects are pretty static. Most of the time I take pictures, you know, of plants, mountains, that kind of thing in the middle of the day. So I don't worry too much about these subjects to suddenly jump up and run away. So I don't need to worry too much about the shutter speed. Also, I've got good IBIS here, so it's pretty rare that the shutter speed goes too low, you know, and I start having shaky images. That doesn't really ever happen to me anymore. And most of the time my pictures end up being pretty sharp enough for me. Also because it's the middle of the day, I don't worry too much about the ISO going too high. The aperture is the one thing that I change, whether I want to have shallow depth of field or if I want to have the sharpest possible photo by moving up from f4 to f8 or something like that. I think I just found something else which looks quite nice. It's these dry kind of plants which I saw in the summer already, and they've completely dried out now. So it's these kind of plants here which are pretty dried out, which sometimes look really good in black and white. Just going to see if I can take a picture with my XH1. I'm not convinced. I don't think this is the best subject or composition today. But while I was doing that, I turned around and I suddenly spotted something which I saw in the summer and I completely forgot about. Let's take you over here. Look at these. Can you see? Completely dried out plants. Very beautiful. There's pretty harsh lights today. So what I'm going to try to do is actually shoot against the light to see if I can work with the strong light. I put my sun hood onto the top of the lens, but I want to see what it's like if I don't fight the sun actually, if I try to get some of those elements into the photo. I'm just trying to obviously not point the camera directly into the sun because that wouldn't be great for my eyes. But I think I got a beautiful photo here, you know. I really like the shape, these strong shapes and the spikiness against the sun. It's a bit funny here with all these things here. Yeah, another thing that I like about taking pictures around here in the Botanical Garden is that the conditions change all the time during the year, during the week. Some days it will be foggy, you will have great atmosphere that you can show in your photos. Another day it will be really harsh light like today. Another time you will have some snow, another time you will have the plants growing. So the conditions really change all the time. It teaches me a lot of things which are useful for my photography, but also for life in general. It helps me to be more flexible. It helps me to observe without letting my own thoughts and my own feelings, the way I'm feeling in the moment, intrude too much into the moment. It also helps me to be a bit more resilient, because sometimes it can be a little bit harsh out here. It's happened before that I would come back after 1.5 hours of walking around, taking photos or filming with completely wet feet, not feeling my hands anymore. And all of these things are useful, you know. If you never practice feeling uncomfortable, it will be pretty hard to change yourself, to stay malleable and adapt to your situation. So these things don't seem maybe so obvious, like they would be useful for your photography. But I think about that as well, because I know that it has a huge impact on whether I will find some photos. Another thing which I find really important is to stay open and to not be disappointed if I don't find any photos. On some days I will come home. Sorry, I'm just looking how beautiful the sun's shining through the trees. On some days I will go back to the office without any photos, or I will think that I just took several pictures with my camera, and when I look at them on the screen it's just not so great. But I find that it's important to learn also for life in general, to accept and go with what you're being dealt, you know. And I know that at the end of the year I will look back to my Lightroom catalog and have some really great photos, other days where it won't have worked out. But at least it will have been a great experience. I will have spent 1.5 hours out here in nature, which is amazing. Yes, I hope you are having a beautiful day and that you enjoyed today's video. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one.